Toad TV. I am Mary Beth.
I am Helen.
We are the creative hands and minds behind Toad Hollow. And welcome. Today is Wednesday. It is March 19th. That's right, because it's our good friend Ray's birthday. Happy birthday, Ray, if you're watching. Anyway, we are here to have a chat, a little bit of a knit and chat with you guys. So we started doing things on other social media platforms other than Facebook and Instagram. And one of the ones that Helen got really into was Substack. And she found a bunch of different people to follow.
It's a writing forum. It's much more of a long form media as opposed to in and out with like Instagram where you're putting up a picture and TikTok and blah, 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 blah. This is just more reading.
Almost like blogs.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of when, we'd read our blogger feed.
Right.
Which I find comforting.
Yes.
Going more in depth into things. And without a picture there and it's just writing, you're kind of forced to read as opposed to looking at the picture and, extrapolating whatever information you think is coming from the picture.
Right.
As opposed to what the person intended you to get.
Okay.
Because I am just as guilty of going through Instagram and scrolling through pictures and not necessarily reading the description that somebody put in.
I very, very rarely go into this description.
Which is wrong because I know how much I struggle to get every word perfectly for our descriptions. When usually I just think to myself, just put the picture up and say, yarn.
Yeah. Anyway, one of the people that Helen found is named Stacy Vata.
I think it's Vajta.
And she refers to herself as the feisty crone. And we really resonated with her. Helen has sent me several of her posts, I guess you would call them.
I'd consider them articles.
Articles, okay. And they're just really, really interesting. She's approximately our age and she's seeing things through eyes that are very similar to ours. And one of these articles, really, we started talking about it and we thought, this would be a great podcast because we'd love to share this information and stuff with you because I think it's going to resonate with you as well. It's
very, it fits with our podcast. It fits with our thought process.
Right.
And it's just going into it. We may get a little ragey. A little.
Not sure how that could happen.
But we wanted to talk about it anyway because we think it's a very true and important thing to talk about.
Yes.
So I'm going to link the article down below, and I think I'm also probably will have put in the YouTube community notes that here's an article to read before our next episode comes out.
Oh, okay.
So, homework. So if you did see that there, then maybe you've read the article because it will make much more sense to you. Not that it's cryptic or anything.
Oh, no.
Because we're probably going to read you just about every word from the article because we both have.
Okay. So I printed it out so I could highlight the parts that are important to me. And every page has lots of yellow highlighters on it because a lot of this really is important.
Right. And the whole point of the article is she was on an Instagram live feed and she said that inevitably, because she is a creative person, the phrase, "I'm not creative," came up. And that phrase makes her mad because she doesn't just see it as, "Oh, I'm not creative." She sees it as, hold on.
Let me read this for you, okay?
Because I have it written.
When women say, "I'm not creative," they're not just talking about art. They're talking about something much bigger. They're talking about how much space they're allowed to take up. They're talking about how they move through the world, or more accurately, how we've been taught to move through the world, small. Okay.
And I, for a great deal of my life, did not consider myself a creative person. Because to me, I'm not good enough at anything to be considered creative. And I don't know, my brain just necessarily didn't go in that what I thought creative was. Sorry, my brother's sending us pictures of crocuses, which is gets my mind going.
Yeah.
Anyway, and being that my chosen workplaces when I worked in the real world, not the real world,
Offices.
When I worked in an office, because I was going to say when I worked a professional job, but I work a professional job now. I was in a very male-dominated field. I was in construction and real estate and
Finance.
And I never really thought about it at the time because I always made it my fault. Why they didn't choose me, or they didn't listen to me, or
towards the end you were noticing about it,
right.
Because when I was thinking about this, about how you're made to feel small, and I'm just gonna when a woman says I'm not creative, she's not really talking about talent. She's talking about power. She's saying I don't trust my instincts. She's saying I don't believe I can try something and get it wrong. She said, I don't know if doing what I want is even okay. And that is the biggest lie of all. Because I remember you talking about being in the meetings with Paul. Helen worked with someone and she would have an idea and say something, and he would nod and repeat exactly what she said verbatim.
Oh, but it wasn't always right afterwards. He was the perfect parent, because I would say something in the meeting, and the owner would either pass it off or ignore it. And then a couple minutes later, almost verbatim, we'll call him a jackass, would say exactly what I said. And because he said it, it became a great idea.
And then when the time came for who should be promoted and stay in the company and who should be let go,
it was me.
He was the one that was promoted and you were the one that was let go. And there is absolutely nothing you can tell me that is not going to make me believe that it is because she has a uterus and he has something else. So, and by something else, I do not mean good ideas. I'm pretty sure he has not had an original plot ever. But it wasn't only that, because you ran into that on more than one occasion.
It was,
and I ran into it in some of the meetings that I was in,
right.
And
positions would open up, and I would be like, hey, I'd love to move up into that position. It's an accounting position. I'm going to school for accounting. I can do this. I might take a little time to learn it, but no, you're not ready yet. And then they put in a male who lasted 3 or 4 months. And it always, like in that particular instance, because I was relatively new in the workforce, I just thought, oh, okay, I'm not ready yet.
Right.
And never, stamped my foot and said, no, I'm ready. Goodbye.
Yes. Part of what the feisty crone, did we mention that she calls herself the feisty crone?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Part of what she is saying is that for a lot of women, their creative energy starts to bubble up in their third act. I love the fact that we are in our third act. I think that is such a great way
I was thinking about that, and I was
it.
thinking, by age, I'm in my third act. I don't necessarily, because third and final is how the saying goes.
Oh well. I personally am part of a multi-act thing. There's going to be more than 3. But anyway, go ahead.
So then I'm like, oh, I'm in my third act. But it is. It's just because, and her point is that, we're getting to the age where we, she said at some point where it's, you stop being the person that you were taught to be, and
yes.
I'm starting to become me.
Right.
Because I don't care.
Well, she says that we begin to unearth who we were before the world told us who we ought to be.
There you go.
Which, I mean, okay.
It's much better phrasing than that.
But she also says that the fire burns away the injustices that we've carried, and we begin to feel ourselves anew. We're feeling these injustices now, not just the crones, but every woman, every age, every generation. The world needs women who are ready to create something different, women who are ready to act. And she doesn't say, but this is the way I feel. I've stopped caring about what people think about me. I don't need your validation of me. I need my validation of me. So if you don't agree with me, that's fine. That is really, that's okay. You don't have to. The world would be a very boring place if we all thought exactly the same way. That's fine.
As long as we can have discourse about it and not just, slam doors and walk away from each other.
But also don't expect me to bend to your beliefs because that's what you think. I don't expect you to follow the same rules or things, not rules, but I don't expect you to follow the same path that I am on because this is my path, and you should be able to do what you want and what you feel is right for you. So, that was something that I added to it.
Instagram, the friends.
Oh, what they're doing.
How do you expect me to grow if you won't let me blow? That's all I could think of when you were saying.
But it's true. It's absolutely true. I've stopped. I am not working for somebody else, so I don't need to fit into their parameters, and I can do things the way I want to do them.
And we have been doing this this is the longest job I've ever held.
Oh yeah.
And so I am now comfortable in the fact that I can say that we're making it work. We're not billionaire moguls who can fly into space and save astronauts, but it works for me, and I get to create my own little world. And in this particular time, I need that, and I need the creativity. And I think part of what resonated so much about this is she talks about the world needs the women who are ready to create something different. And creativity, it's not just about talent, and it's not just about art. It's how we solve problems. It's how we dream of something better and how we challenge the status quo and build something new in its place. And I think, in particular, it's, how we solve problems. I don't think necessarily the world is being particularly creative at the moment in solving problems. And it distresses me greatly. So that I am doing my knitting and I am doing my cross stitch because that is how I make me happy at this particular time. Because the world is not making me happy. And one of her examples was during the AIDS crisis, when the world turned away and thousands were dying. They created the AIDS Memorial Quilt as something to express their grief, but also create something that you can't turn away from.
I thought that was so important. Yeah. These women who put together the quilt, each making their own small piece of it. And you think, I'm making a small piece of a quilt. What difference is it going to be? Is it going to make? And as she pointed out, it is something that cannot be ignored.
Right.
And every time you create something like that, you are putting not only the idea out there, you are putting something out there that cannot be ignored, that people will see and will remember. When she was talking about that, one of the most enduring images in my mind is Princess Diana touching the AIDS patients and letting people know that you can care for people and you're not going to get sick and that kind of thing. She was so human.
It was just the kindest thing.
It was.
I mean, just absolutely human touch.
Just, that I am this great person who it's just coming and putting a hand on a shoulder.
I don't even think she was thinking of that in terms of that. At that moment, I think it was just, I'm going to touch this person and give them the kindness of human contact.
And it was just, anyway, so the difference that women make just I think one of the things that this Stacey Vada is trying to point out is that what you make doesn't matter. What you create doesn't matter. It's not that you even have to create something physical. It is that you are creating an idea and a thought and doing something with it. I think that when Princess Diana was doing that, she was not creating art. She was not creating anything. I don't think she even was thinking that way. But that image was created from her kindness and her humanity, and it is with me 40 years after it happened. It's still with me and still affects me to the point where it will make me cry just thinking about it.
And I just feel we need a little more humanity.
We need a lot more humanity.
I read the New York Times and I get physically upset with some of the things going on, not just in our country, in the world in general. And it's time for us to take over, guys.
They said that somebody did, I guess you would call it a meme, of if there were the 3 wise women, they wouldn't have gotten lost. They would have gotten there on time, and they'd be bringing casseroles. So, it's just the women need to take over.
And they would have sent, the kid playing the drum away. I think I highlighted certain things. It's like, when you say I'm not creative, it's, I don't believe I can try something and get it wrong. And I think that just resonated so much with me because I still have to fight that of, trying something for the first time and it not going perfectly and getting frustrated.
Right. Oh my God, I get so frustrated when it does not come out exactly as I visioned it.
And it's just, who's to say what's right and what's wrong?
Right.
I put an effort into something and I tried something, and when I try it again, I'm going to get that much better at it. And that's something I have to tell myself all the time.
Well, we were just dyeing yarn on Monday, and we were dyeing a new color, and we were looking at it, and it wasn't exactly what was in my head. And in my mind, I started to say that's wrong. But it's not wrong. It's not what was in my head. Just because it comes out differently than the vision that I had in my head doesn't mean that it's wrong, because the skein of yarn is gorgeous.
Yes.
I absolutely adore it.
Patrons.
Yes. For our Seagull patrons, you are going to be seeing this soon. But the first thing that was in my head was, it's wrong because it didn't come out exactly as I saw it in my head. And I do this every time we dye yarn. It's like, it doesn't come out in my head. And we know, and we say to each other all the time, you have to let it get cooked, and then you have to let it dry, because wet and dry are 2 different skeins of yarn sometimes. Sometimes they're the same, but sometimes they're very, very different.
And with yarn, it can go even further. Twisting it. All of a sudden you twist it, and it's like, oh, yeah, no, that's gorgeous. Or sometimes it's like knitting it, and it's like, oh, I had no idea it was going to knit up like that.
Right.
It's beautiful.
And it's not that, oh, it's variegated, I didn't think it was going to knit that way because variegated. No, it's more, I didn't know that all of a sudden that color was going to pop out the way it does.
Right.
That kind of thing. And yes, we do this all the time when we're dyeing yarn. And it's just, you stop yourself from saying it's wrong and say it's not what was in your head.
Right.
Because it's not wrong. It's just different.
And we made some bags recently for ourselves, cross-stitch bags. And they require binding, which is a skill I have yet to perfect. And I got very, very mad because it wasn't the perfectly aligned stitches. And I do this all the time with a lot of things that I make. It's like, well, that's not perfect. That's, it doesn't look like a machine made it. Well, it's not supposed to. I'm not a machine.
Right.
And it's because whatever I have in my head as has to be perfect, that's not. It's a lie, and I just have to.
I made myself a cross.
I created that.
Right, and I said to Helen, the binding is off. The binding is wonky. But I know that the next time I look at this bag, I'm not going to be looking at the binding. And I will forget that that binding is wonky by the second or third time I use this bag, because I don't think of, I go on to what the bag is for and the rest of the fabric and this one tiny little thing that does not line up perfectly the way, you know, professional seamstresses, quilters, whatever can make it do is fine.
Right. I mean, when we made the quilts that we gave out for Christmas, you and I, on our each, you know, I would do it to mine and you would do it to yours, would pick apart every little thing that you knew was wrong with it.
Right.
And we would have to tell each other, A, they don't know that's wrong.
Right.
And again, that's not wrong. It's just because it's not what you thought it was going to be or what the pattern said to do, and it's not wrong. And they're not going to take it and look at the binding and go, really? You gave me this piece of trash
with this wonky binding? Do you not care about me at all?
Right. No, they're going to look at it and go, oh my God, they thought about me enough that they spent this time, all this time, to make my gift.
Right.
So that's, yes.
Amanda, don't look at your binding.
So, I mean, one of the things is she says is also, you know, do something that makes you feel creative. Not to be good at it, and not necessarily to show anyone.
That is,
and I think
so important.
Right. In this age of taking pictures of what we eat, and I'm guilty of it, taking pictures of every step of my process and putting it up on Instagram or whatever, waiting for the validation. You know, it's an age that we're in where you feel like you need to put it out into, you know, I did something, I have to put it out into the world. If it's not on Instagram, did it happen? And sometimes it's just, you know, just do it for you. Not sometimes, all the time. Do it for you and do it to be creative. And creativity is in the form of art or knitting or whatever. It is all a muscle that needs to be worked. But creativity works in so many different ways. I can sit here and talk to you and knit without looking. I am knitting back and forth, and I'm not looking at it. And I'm comfortable enough in that I am. And to me, that's not a big deal. To somebody else, it's like a huge deal. Whereas somebody else can walk into this room and say, well, if you move this here and you move that there and you put that on the wall and you put that on the wall, do that. And all of a sudden I have a whole new beautiful room that I never even thought about.
Right. And
it looks much bigger or whatever. It's just something I don't choose to think about. But that's their creativity.
Right. I mean, and I think that's the big thing that I was taking from this article, other than feel your inner power, and fuel your inner power. It's that you don't need to hold something in your hand by the time you're finished to feel creative. You know, there are people who go outside and start sticking their hands in the dirt and gorgeous flowers show up. And I am not that person.
Or they look at a patch of dirt and they think, I'm going to do that, and I'm going to get that, and I'm going to get that, and a beautiful garden exists.
Right.
I have to go to YouTube.
And go to a garden center and get the diagram and plant them exactly where the diagram goes. And I mean, I can follow instructions. I can do that.
And I mean, I can read, you know, this plant needs sun. It's the placement of plants, of having my bigger, puffier grasses in the back and the little plants. And I don't
think that way.
I don't think that way, and I don't see that way.
Right.
I want it to look that way.
And then there are people
with
that go
very little effort on my part, or, you know, but I still want, and this is my biggest problem, because I'm lazy. I have a lazy brain, I have a lazy body. I want to be able, I want to feel like I did it. Like, you know, I created that garden. So
there are certain
in
things
other words,
that
I don't want to pay a landscaper to come in and clear my yard and put in a beautiful garden for me. I want to feel like I did it. But I don't, when push comes to shove, it's like, well, I don't want to go outside.
There are bugs out there.
You know, there are bugs, they're people.
Also, there are people that go into the kitchen and just start taking things out of their pantry and throw things together, and it comes out tasting really, really, really good.
Because they
And
went to
then
school.
Well, no, there are people who have an innate talent to do that.
Yeah.
And there are also people who really love food, so they watch how things go together, and they know these things. There are also people who have learned from their mothers and their grandmothers or their fathers, and just watching them cook, and they have an idea of what works together. I can take a recipe and follow it and come up with a really delicious dish, but I do not care enough about what is in my pantry to know that if I take this mustard and this vinegar and these pine nuts and this and this and this and put them together, it's going to be a on-the-spot gorgeous dish.
Yeah, you do little pieces of that.
Yes, I do.
Because you do, you have learned enough through cooking and that kind of thing, because I watch you do it. And you are, in cooking and knitting and sewing, you are much more likely to deviate from the path than I am.
That is true.
I don't think you look at something and you think, well, I don't want to do it that way. I'm going to do it this way. And I'm like, no, you can't do it. That's the pattern. It's not the way the pattern's supposed to be. And that's a little bit of OCD I get from my mother. It's a fight. And I'm getting better at it because it's a matter of trusting myself too.
Right. Very much so.
And I don't trust myself enough. So
I also am not afraid to take things out and just say, okay, that doesn't work. Or I'm bored with this. I'm moving on to something else. And I think sometimes you have a tendency to think, I started this, I need to finish it. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to be frogging my hood. We'll talk about that the next time we're talking knitting.
But I was going to say, we're not talking about any, like, what we're working on or anything.
No.
I think this is a conversation.
I'm
not even sure how much editing I'm going to do on this.
I think one of the big things is understanding, because we do have friends who don't knit and who don't sew and who have told us, that they're not creative. And they are creative in different ways, and that's the big thing.
Right.
It's just because you're not creative in the same way that I am creative does not mean that you are not creative. And creative thoughts and creative ways of thinking, and
it's the women were conditioned through history to believe our ideas, our problem solving, and our ability to shape and mold our own damn lives. I added part of that. Isn't valued, and when we spend our lives feeling less than, of course we're going to feel less creative. When you get told, and it's not even as blatant as being told, no, you can't do that. It's being told in a very nice way. Well, that's really ambitious of you, but or Mary Beth, you've got to go get a real job now. That was our father, who in his own right was trying to do the best thing for you.
Right.
But also putting you in the box.
Well, yes, because he thought in the box.
Right.
There were in certain places he thought outside the box, but there are certain ways that he was in the box. So, all right. So I'm going to wind up with some of these that she said. Small acts of powers do wonders. Make a conscious decision to claim your creativity in all its power, because you've always had it. Don't listen to the voice that says, I'm not creative, because that's not yours. It was learned, taught, passed down, and it is not the truth. And we are not reinforcing that old story anymore. Nope. So,
I have, in capital letters, creativity is an act of defiance.
There you go. So, feel your own creative energy. Because creativity has never been about making art or just about making art. It's been about making something that matters. And we as women are long overdue to reclaim that truth. Preach. So that is our word for you today. Go claim your inner power. Claim your creativity.
Right. And when we say go forth and create, it's not just make something. Have a creative thought.
Right.
Come up with a creative problem solving.
And, every little thing that you make matters.
And I think that's the biggest thing is, believe in yourself and great
That's
things
the big
happen.
thing. Yeah. Believe in yourself. Okay.
And it's something I have to tell myself every day. Several times a day.
Well, it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It is. So, go forth
and create.
Okay. Have a wonderful week, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.